Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 612. My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we are here to talk movies and movie discussion and movie lists and movie
Ridiculous,
games
James.
with you for the what? I'm doing the intro, all right? It's been a while since I've done this. I forget what the spiel is.
You just couldn't remember it.
Kyle's been doing it for too long at this point.
I know.
I did it for like 500 episodes. Kyle does it for 2 years and I forget it.
You just zone out during that?
Yeah, for sure. Welcome.
Do you know
to
when
the
I used to do
podcast.
the intro, I would switch the order every time just for fun. So
I
movie
don't
lists and
remember
movie obsession, or movie obsession and movie lists. I would just swap it around
Interesting.
all the time.
that. Is that what it was? That's what it's supposed to be. Welcome to movie lists and movie obsession for the next hour or so. That's the line, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast, episode 612. Zach and I are here without Kyle. Kyle's a little under the weather, so he bowed out this week. Hopefully
He had like
feeling
4
better.
different reasons for not being on the podcast this week. So
Sure.
he's definitely not going to be on the podcast this week.
Right.
I'm just kidding. He was feeling bad.
Which I told him I was bummed about because I think he'd have something to say about the movie this week.
Yes, he would not like this movie.
Oh, you think he wouldn't like it?
I think he would not like it.
Interesting. I
think?
feel like there's potential for him to really like it, and also potential for him to not like it.
Okay.
I think it could go either way. Do you
Well,
think this is
obviously-
like a Beau is Afraid situation? You think that's why he won't like it, or what's the?
No, I don't think it's a Beau is Afraid situation. I don't know. I just got the vibe that he would not like this film. So I'll be pleasantly
Okay.
surprised if he did. Yeah, if you had to bet on one, which one would you say?
I would say that I'm going to go out on a limb and say Kyle. It would not be his favorite movie, but I don't think he would despise it like he does a movie like Beau is Afraid. I think
James.
he'd be middling to positive on it. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, midly to positive. I just love how
Right.
your answer is like, it's not going to be his favorite, but he wouldn't despise it.
Right, because like Beau
He's
is
like setting the
Afraid.
bounds. He's in this zone.
I'm just saying Beau is Afraid, Kajillionaire. Those are movies that he actively despises, right? That we've talked about on this podcast.
Because they're super
So-
weird. Yeah.
And this one wasn't. We'll get into it.
No, this one was pretty tame. It's not Beau is Afraid or Kajillionaire is weird.
I don't know. Well, we'll get into it. We'll get into it when we get into it. We'll get into it.
I'm into it.
Welcome to the podcast for the 4th or 5th time. We're going to talk Netflix's Leave the World Behind. We're also going to answer some listener email, and we're going to play a game, a movie trivia game, movie trivia challenge. We'll call it a challenge. It's part 1 of a movie trivia challenge. So look forward to that. Zach's giving me nothing. It's fine.
No, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about that.
Just making
That's
sure.
great.
Before we jump into all that, I need to remind you that next week we will be releasing our annual Christmas episode. And as we've done in recent previous years, this episode will consist of 3 reviews of 3 Christmas movies. Those movies are The Apology from 2022, The Holdovers from 2023, in theaters now and on premium video on demand. Where's The Apology? Didn't we figure out like Hulu, I think? The Apology is on.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
That sounds right.
And then
that's the one I haven't watched yet.
Gotcha. That's the only one I've watched. So there we go.
Okay.
And finally, the 3rd movie is Genie on Peacock, which is a comedy starring Melissa McCarthy as a genie who gives Christmas wishes, I'm assuming.
No, just wishes at Christmas.
Just wishes at Christmas. Okay.
I mean, like wishes and it's Christmas.
Gotcha. So the reason why I'm telling you that is because if you'd like to pre-watch those movies, since all of them are relatively new, and you may have not seen them, then go ahead and give them a pre-watch. And then when you listen to the podcast, you'll have some a base for what we're talking about. Doesn't mean you can't listen to the podcast without having seen the movies. Certainly you can do that. But if you're the type of person that has to have seen the movie before we talk about it, those are the 3 we're going to watch between now and the release of that episode next week. Also, don't forget, find this podcast on YouTube, youtube.com/@Cinereelists. Find us there. Support the podcast by watching it while you listen. Another way to support the podcast is on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Support us there. Get extra after show audio as well as other Cinerealist swag. You could also leave us an Apple Podcast review, 5 stars only. We appreciate that. Or send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com. Send a comment, question, list suggestion, movie suggestion, any of those kinds of things we appreciate via email, and we'll most likely discuss on the podcast, just as we're going to do this week. You ready to get into some emails, Zach?
Yes.
Let's do it. Our first email from this week comes from good old Troy Carruthers. Troy regularly sends us his last 10 top 10, which is great. I wish more listeners would do this. I know they're watching movies. They might as well just write them down. When you got 10, rank them and send them to us, because it's a good way to find movies as well as find out what the listeners think about movies that we've already seen. But Troy has sent us a few top 10, last 10 since the last time we did this. We picked his most recent. Troy writes, "Hey guys, happy December. Here's my latest top 10, last 10. His number 10, Hocus Pocus from 1993. Have you ever seen this?
I haven't, no.
Okay. I feel like
I knew it's not going to be something I'd enjoy.
Really? Why do you say that? It's got like Bette Midler in it and other people.
Well, didn't in the 90s or whenever this came out, I did not care about Bette Midler. That wasn't a draw.
But you do now, is what you're saying?
Probably more than I did as a 9-year-old.
It's got Sarah Jessica Parker in it. You're a big SJP head.
In my preteens, I wouldn't have known who she was.
Thora Birch. Who doesn't like Thora Birch?
I don't like Thora Birch.
You literally don't like her, or you don't know much about her?
Let me look up Thora Birch.
You don't know much about her. I don't think you dislike Thora Birch. I just think you don't know who that is. She's one half of Ghost World.
Don't like her.
What? Don't like her? And what is wrong with you? Haven't seen this movie, but big fan of Thora Birch. I'm down to watch Hocus Pocus. His number 9, Reptile, which is a Netflix movie. Have you seen this one?
No.
Benicio del Toro in a Sicario-esque movie.
Wow.
It was good. I liked it. Troy gave it his number 9 out of 10, so I guess he didn't like it. Actually, he writes, only a 3-star, but it was a good movie. That seems antithetical, right? Can you call a good movie a 3-star movie?
Yeah.
I disagree. And as the Letterboxd police...
How high does that have to be good?
On my scale?
Yeah.
3.5.
3.5 to be good. So what's 3? What one word describes 3?
I don't know about one word, but slightly above average is a 3.
Wouldn't that be slightly above average? Ridiculous.
2.5 is average. 3 is slightly above average. 3.5, good. 4, pretty good. 4.5, pretty good. 5, perfect. That's the scale. It's not difficult. It's right there on my Letterboxd, the bio.
Sure.
All right. His number 8, Attachment from 2023. Never heard of this. How about you?
No, haven't heard of it.
Heard of a movie called Attachment? This was very different from any other horror or suspense movie I'd seen. The acting was awesome. The characters were cool. The story captivating, and an all-around very well-made movie. Wow, sounds higher than a 3.5-star movie.
Do you think that horror movies on average are more likely to have one-word titles than non-horror films?
I On average, I'm going to say no. And here's why.
You think it? Okay.
One, I can think of a lot of them that absolutely don't. Like the house on Haunted Hill. You know what I mean? Even Paranormal Activity is 2 words. Then you bring in the sequel factor. Paranormal Activity 2, Paranormal Activity 3, Halloween 2, 3, 4, 5. So like all the sequels are going to have more than one. And a lot of horror movies get sequels. And so even movies like Conjuring, would you call that 1? Or since
1.
the actual title is The Conjuring, is it 2?
2.
Okay. Well, there's like 4 Conjuring movies. So all of them are more than 2, even though it feels like that's a 1-word horror movie.
Okay. What about this then?
Okay.
To mitigate that.
Sure.
First in a franchise, do you think horror films are more likely to have a 1-word title than first of a franchise of non-horror films?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
But that's a total guess. I have no idea. But I feel like you're correct there.
Could you quickly name 5 horror films with 1-word titles?
Sure. Demon?
Okay.
Suspiria?
Yeah.
Halloween?
Yeah.
Slaughterhouse?
Okay.
I mean, there are a lot of horror movies.
Yeah, there are.
There's so many with the word "the" in it that would be 1 word if you got rid of the. Because that's all that's hitting my brain right now. I think I only need 1 more, right?
I think so.
Life Force.
Okay.
1 word.
Nice.
Life Force.
Ones
Alien.
that came to mind.
Alien. There we go. 6.
Scream, Carrie.
There you go.
Jaws.
There's a lot of them. Yep. Jaws is a horror movie?
I don't
know. It's probably horror suspense.
You think it's a fish thriller?
Are sharks a fish?
Yeah,
we've been over this. That's a throwback to a long time
ago. Yeah.
All right. The Killer from 2023 is his number 7. We talked about this on the podcast. He writes, I watched this because of the podcast. It was really cool. It likely won't make my top 10 of the year, but I'm glad I watched it. I would agree with that. Probably won't make my top 10, but I'm glad I watched it.
Yeah.
His number 6, The Thin Red Line from 1998. For years, I'd thought I'd seen this movie, but I think I had it mixed up with another one. It had an impressive cast, a great story, and everything else you'd need and want from a war movie. Would be at least in my top 20 favorite war movies. You've seen The Thin Red Line, right?
Oh, yeah. The cast is pretty wild. They just keep coming.
Yeah.
It's like a compilation CD.
Yeah. I watched it on Criterion this year, and I didn't realize it was a Terrence Malick movie until I got into it. And
once you're watching it, it's pretty obvious.
Oh yeah. It's definitely a Terrence Malick movie. That's like the 2nd or 3rd time I'd seen it, and it just had never, I don't know, contextualized that it was a Terrence Malick movie. I don't know.
Do you remember the trailer for that movie?
No.
It had a good trailer.
Good? Yeah. Did the trailer make it look more exciting than the actual movie is?
Yeah.
Sure. Not shocking. Number 5, Where to Invade Next from 2015. Never heard of this. Sounds great.
Me neither.
Wow, this is so much better than I had anticipated. The intro made me roll my eyes, but after that I was really into it. If this list was based on learning and inspiring, this and Killers of the Flower Moon would share the number 1 spot together. Ooh, spoilers. Now we know what his number 1 is. His number 4, a movie that I've been dragging my heels on, but I've heard is great. They Cloned Tyrone.
I've heard interesting things about that.
Yeah. I believe it's a Netflix movie that is good. It says, so funny. Jamie Foxx was exceptional, and I laughed out loud many times throughout. All right. I'll get to it before the end of the year. Number 3, Priscilla, which we talked about on the podcast. He gave it 4 stars. I too enjoy Sofia Coppola's movies. All right. Thanks, Troy. Number 2, Killers of the Flower Moon. We also talked about this one on the podcast. He says, the podcast on this one was super interesting. I loved the movie, including the epilogue. I do agree that it would have been better to have more of the Native American perspective. Yep. I think that was my point. His number 1, Bottoms. Another movie we talked about on the podcast. He writes, this was so funny and fun. I had such a great time with this movie, and I do think it just might make my top 10. We'll see.
Nice.
Well,
We
thanks
like
for sending
Bottoms.
us your list, Troy. We appreciate it. Where to Invade Next and Attachment were 2 that I had never heard of. I will check them out. And it's nice to get another thumbs up on They Cloned Tyrone.
Absolutely. Okay. Our next email is from Josh Sale. He writes, hello, James, Kyle, and Zach. I finally caught up with The Fablemans, and I'm curious if you did or did not catch a small detail in the film. As you didn't bring it up, a certain character mentions that when the horizon is in the middle, it's boring. And then the final shot of the film, the horizon is in the middle of the frame. And it's as if the camera person suddenly realizes and shifts the horizon to the bottom. I thought that this was super clever. James, did you notice this detail? And why didn't you mention it on the show?
I did notice it, and I didn't mention it on the show because I forgot to talk about it. I don't think you were on that episode, right?
I don't remember. I absolutely noticed it.
Okay.
If I was on the episode, I'm surprised I didn't mention it because I felt like I would have mentioned it because it's the first time I've ever consciously been aware of Spielberg being like breaking the fourth wall of his camera.
Oh, okay.
And I thought it was a really kind of cool moment.
Right.
Can you think of another time he broke the fourth wall?
No,
Maybe
but
Schindler's List?
He normally doesn't make movies about making movies. And in that movie, he's kind of like being cheeky, like he's been behind the camera the whole time, following the rules of cinema type of thing.
Totally.
Like
It's a very
over
cheeky
time.
ending, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you think of it like in the meta, like he's the guy, the representation of him is in the frame in that moment that you've just watched for 2 hours. And also he's just like, not only did the character learn that, but I am the character. And here's me adjusting my shot.
Yeah, totally.
It's a nice touch in a mostly feel good movie, I would say.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Another quick question. I recently got my second film related tattoo and wondering if Zach would ever get a Robin Hood tattoo. What would it take? Why not? So first of
I
all,
can
he
answer
didn't
this.
he didn't mention
Zach will
what
never get a tattoo.
He didn't say what his 2 movie related tattoos would be or are. So I'm curious what those are.
Okay.
But would I ever get a Robin tattoo? I wouldn't probably not ever get a Robin Hood tattoo. Although I've seen some really cool ones online.
Mhm.
Like there are very talented artists that can just absolutely nail it. And they make these
Sure.
really cool, intricate, like, well, good designs kind of thing. I'm just not,
Sure.
I'm not super into tattoos. I don't know. I've never wanted one. And, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like Robin Hood a lot, but I don't want it on my body.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
My
not
dad-
really a Robin Hood thing. It's a tattoo thing.
Yeah, I
That's
just
why
don't want a
you wouldn't
tattoo.
do it.
Yeah. My
Right.
dad had a awesome tattoo on his forearm of like a dagger. It was sweet. Him and all his Vietnam buddies got it.
Did they get it in Vietnam, like while they were there or afterwards?
So I'm a little hazy on the actual origin story of this tattoo.
Okay.
It's possible he got it there with a bunch of army
Mhm.
guys. It's also possible that just he was out at a bar with strangers
Here in the US?
non-related to Vietnam. Yeah. And then just got it.
Sure.
The real story is somewhere in that spectrum.
Right.
But yeah,
makes
no,
sense.
I've never wanted a tattoo, but I've seen
Mhm.
some really sweet Robin Hood tattoos out there.
Nice.
James, you don't have a tattoo, do you?
I do not have a tattoo. I have wanted one, but I can never really pull the trigger. I don't know. I think part of it is the permanence of it. And the other part of it is like my body is always shifting. Like I recently went on a diet again because I popped a button on some shorts and I'm like, oh, I either got to buy new shorts or start losing weight type of thing. And so I'm like, not necessarily self-aware, just like I'm going to get a tattoo. And then like, I mean, I'm in my 40s, right? So like in 20 years, I'm not going to have as much control over the elasticity of my skin. And I've seen old people with tattoos. I've never seen an old person with a tattoo where I was like, it's still cool. You know what I mean? It's just
Really?
I don't know. There's just something about, have you seen a 65-year-old at the pool where you're just like, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean?
My dad's tattoo at 71 was pretty sweet.
I would say if I was to get one, it would be like right here on my forearm, because I feel like one, that's where I'd enjoy them the most because I could actually see them. Like people who put things on their back, I don't understand it. But at least here you could actually see it. And yeah, and I don't think like your forearm's going to change all that much over time. Whereas I think like, let's say I lifted a bunch of weights and then got a badass an awesome tribal tattoo on my arm. Then when I'm 65 and I'm not lifting weights, it's like, it looks like it's like melting on my droopy skin. You know what I mean? Like who wants that? So yeah, that's why I would do forearm because I don't think that would change all that much. And I've gotten pretty close. Like I've emailed with artists.
Okay.
Discussing what I want. And then when they were like, I can draw it up, but you have to commit. Then I'm like, let's put this on hold because I don't want you to actually do anything yet.
What did you discuss with them?
Like what it would be.
Right.
Like the dream is like 3 tattoos. One would be a tribute to my brother-in-law who passed away like 5 years ago.
Of course.
And then I'd want something film related and then something creative related, like marketing or something like that. And so
just the word marketing. That'd be amazing.
Just an M. And they're like, is that for Mario? And I'm like, no, marketing.
Yeah. McDonald's? No, marketing.
Something, something like, I don't know what it would be. I have no clue what it would be. That's part of the problem too.
Sure.
The only one I have any idea for is the tribute one. And that's probably the most likely to ever happen, if any of them happen. But it's been years since I've even pursued it. I don't think it'll ever happen.
If In-N-Out Burger would pay you $50,000 to get the In-N-Out logo on your back, would you do it?
No. In-N-Out? I don't even like In-N-Out.
Right. Yeah.
Why would I do? Why would I?
You would do it for the money. The money would be the thing.
$50,000?
Yeah. And it's on your back. You would never see it.
That's true. $50,000. Not for $50,000, but I do have a price though, for sure.
Sure.
I'm not against doing it for money. I'm against doing it for $50,000.
Okay. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. It's no like $100K to dance around naked in the credits of a movie.
Which you would do. Yeah.
But that's not permanent. I mean, it's permanently recorded.
It's pretty permanent. I would say that's more permanent.
To me, that's less scary than a tattoo on my back. How big is the tattoo? Like this big or like a half of my back?
No, like a playing card.
Oh, for $50,000? Yes.
Yeah.
I would do it. Because I think for like $5,000, I could get it removed.
You get $50,000 for each one of those tattoos you get on your back.
Oh, well then tattoo me up and then I'll pay like $50,000 to get them all removed. It'll be fine.
All right.
Be the easiest money I ever make for sure.
It might I don't know how painful getting a tattoo removed is, but that sounds worse than getting a tattoo.
From what I understand, it's worse, but first with nothing to actually point to, I feel like I have a high tolerance of pain.
I think at this point you would know. Like I have a high tolerance for pain.
How would I know? You've
been in painful situations.
Like what?
You've never been in a painful situation?
I've never broken a bone.
I've
certainly like fallen on a bike. Actually, the worst pain I was ever in was when I played basketball in sandals which is never a good idea unless you're going to play casually. I was playing for, life or death. And I hurt my back. And that was the worst pain I've ever felt. Like I literally could not move without shooting pains up my back. And if getting a tattoo feels like that, I will never get a tattoo. But I don't think it feels like that.
I don't think it does either.
Right. But that's by far the worst pain I've ever felt.
Okay.
I don't feel pain.
Clearly not. Yeah.
I don't put myself in situations where I would feel pain.
Yeah, you're practically leprous.
Right. And that's why I'm not leprous. How dare you?
But you could be. You wouldn't know.
I'm just saying. But yet for some reason, I think, and it might be a delusion, I have a high tolerance for pain. But I've never tested it.
Do you know once I stapled my arm to win a bet?
Stapled it like to something?
No, just staples like straight into the forearm.
Like you pinched the skin and then stapled something to that?
No. You know how like you can like open up the stapler and then like hammer it into something and it'll put a staple in?
Sure.
So that into my forearm.
And just to win a bet?
Yeah.
Did you win?
Oh yeah. I did it.
It went into your arm?
Oh yeah. It embedded in that. You had to like pry it out. I worked at no, not at all. I worked at a Red Robin, and the bartender at Red Robin was like, "Hey, did you know you can staple your arm and it doesn't hurt?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, yeah, I used to do it all the time to win money. You can just staple it, and for whatever reason in your forearm, it just doesn't hurt to like staple your arm. And he did it for me right there, and I was like, "Whoa!" And so then I got a bunch of my coworkers over, and was like, "Hey guys, I'll staple my arm if y'all pay me $5." And they did. They all chipped in $5, and I stapled my arm, and it didn't really hurt.
Okay. That's another reason I would do it here. I've heard it doesn't hurt all that much.
Yeah.
I've heard of all the places, this is like one of the lower ones. The inside of your forearm.
Man, when Kyle's away, we just really noodle.
Absolutely. 100%. We do. Let
me
move on to the next.
with this email. No, I have more of this email.
Oh, okay. There's more.
Also, loved the Napoleon episode. Glad you guys liked it. Curious if Zach will give a thumbs up or down to the Phoenix performance. As always, love your work, Josh. P.S. Evelyn says hi. I have not listened to the Napoleon episode yet because I have not seen Napoleon yet.
Right. You're waiting for Apple Plus to release the 4-hour version, right?
I would love that, or waiting for time to go to see it in the theater.
Sure.
One or the other. Yeah.
Right. Was that it for Josh?
That's it. Thank you,
Josh.
Josh.
Let's move on to our next. This actually isn't an email. This is a YouTube comment that was left on our last episode that I was going to just answer, but then I was like, let's just talk about it on the podcast. All right. Because this is a long comment. So if you leave a comment on YouTube, we may just answer it in the moment, or we might answer it on the podcast. We'll see. Gas in a Diamond 3146 writes, interesting breakdown. You had some great points in there about Felix's death. Oh, I should say, if you haven't seen Saltburn, we're not going to necessarily spoil things on purpose here, but if you don't want to know anything about Saltburn, maybe skip this email and skip ahead. Interesting breakdown. You had some great points in here about Felix's death. They showed him put drugs in the bottle. Literally, they showed that in the movie. And all three, none of us out of the three of us caught that. Felix overdosed, and that's why Oliver mentions Farley having drugs at lunch, and the father tells him to leave, implying that Farley was responsible for the overdose.
Makes sense.
Again, something we discussed is like, why didn't the police look into this?
Makes sense.
Yep. Total sense. And with Vanetta, I think it was his own razor and that he kept it next to her for her to kill herself with. So it's logical that his prints would be on it. Okay. Well, that would be a point in the other direction where if she did kill herself. Oh, he's saying that she did kill herself. Otherwise, his prints would have been on it.
Yeah.
Oliver's prints would have been on
Yeah.
it. Okay. That makes sense. And I agree that Oliver wasn't some huge mastermind. He's a very unreliable narrator. And I think he just tried to get in with the rich kids at first and desired Felix. And only when he went to Saltburn and lived in that lifestyle did he get obsessed with not just him, but also his house and life and wealth as well. So when Felix found out and Oliver failed to reconcile with him, and because Farley twisted the knife, he was driven to murder. That's generally
I
what
agree
we
with
thought.
that assessment. Yeah.
That's what me and you thought anyway. I think Kyle wasn't fully there. Also, for the Elspeth's death, it was obvious to me that he had a hand in her sickness and then killed her, but agreed that such a death is hard to make seem innocuous, but also he's crazy rich by that point, so who knows? All right.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
So be it.
Agree.
Thank you for the info
Agree.
on the poisoning. Makes total sense.
Yeah. Is it really that easy to like kill someone? Like you just put drugs in their drink and then everyone assumes it's an overdose? It's like, that seems really easy.
Yeah.
Does it work that way? Don't they find drugs in your stomach and they're like, this is suspicious that he ate a bunch of cocaine,
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I've never tried to drug somebody to death or at all. So I don't know.
I know, but if you're a forensic detective, would you not suspect foul play if his stomach was full of drugs?
I don't know how much drugs you'd have to drink to OD on something.
Right.
So I don't know, I guess is the answer. I mean, I know that definitely there have been celebrities and normal people, I'm sure, but definitely the celebrities are the ones I've heard of that have drank alcohol with prescription drugs, and it's been a dangerous mix enough to literally kill them.
Sure. Okay. So yes, they're ingesting like pills. That makes sense to me.
Right. So I don't,
that makes sense.
But I don't know if that's because they're abusing their prescription or they're abusing alcohol or both. You know what I mean? Like, I think maybe if you use both of them in moderation, you're going to be okay.
I didn't consider that.
Right. But the moment one gets out of hand, that's when you end up with a dangerous cocktail.
Right.
Like Heath, what's his name?
Ledger?
Ledger was one of those that just like all indications say he wasn't suicidal. He just mixed the wrong things essentially when he died.
Okay. All right. Our next email is from Justin Eddy.
Okay.
He says, hey guys, here's a list of things I want to mention to y'all. Really enjoyed your take on Saltburn. I agree with everything you said. It may have been more shock value than actual great storytelling, but I still got a good time watching it. It was entertaining, if nothing else, and I think that's okay. I agreed. Spoiler alert. I also think you can confirm that Oliver did in fact poison Felix at the end. I recall a quick cut showing Oliver slipping something into the bottle while still in the maze just before he meets up with Felix, unless I'm imagining that. No, I think that's confirmed at that point by someone else. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2. Add me to the list of people that Zach did in fact convince to watch last year in Marienbad, way back in 2016 to be exact. Would have never heard of it otherwise. I gave it 4.5 stars. That's awesome.
It's great.
Fantastic.
You're doing good out here, Zach. You're doing good.
You know what? That's become my mantle to carry, and I will gladly carry it. Number 3. 2 movie recommendations, one of which I think you should include in your Christmas episode. All right. Okay. You ready for this? Number 1,
well, we've already picked them. So, okay, good.
So The Holdovers, which is going to be on our Christmas episode.
Mm-hmm.
So you got your Christmas wish, Justin. Don't watch the trailer. It's very misleading about the tone. I was very skeptical and turned off by the trailers, but I had heard enough good things. I gave it a shot. Ended up really loving it. I think you guys would too. And it definitely counts as a Christmas movie, although that's not the focus of the film, which tends to be great. That's kind of what we look for as well. They don't all have to be like, jingle bells.
Sure. It is fun if at least one of them is, though.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have already seen the holdovers, so I will hold my take until the Christmas episode next week.
You're going to hold it over?
I'm going to hold it over. And his other suggestion, it's Godzilla -1. Perhaps this is the one he wanted us to review on the Christmas episode. He doesn't say which. I'm sure this is on your radars. It's definitely worth checking out, especially in theaters if you get the chance. Would love to hear you all discuss it on the pod someday. Yes, Godzilla -1. Is this the like super low budget yet awesome Godzilla movie? Am I understanding that correctly?
Low budget, but in comparison to like the US remakes or US versions of
No, I thought it was
Godzilla
like
movies.
a $12 million movie. That's what I heard.
I don't know. Is that super low budget?
$12 million?
I mean, it's low, but it's not like
I think that's super.
budget.
I think that's super low budget for a Godzilla movie.
I've seen it. If they spent $12 million on that, then
what I read was the official was $15 million, and then the director said like, oh, I wish we had 15 million.
According to Google, 52 million.
Okay, that's
which
a higher
is still
budget than I was saying.
low for a Godzilla movie, but far more than 15 million, I would say.
I wouldn't consider 50 million. I wouldn't call that a low budget movie.
I wouldn't,
but
either.
I would call 15 million a low budget movie.
Wikipedia is saying, I'm sorry, 52 million was the box office. I'm incorrect.
Okay.
According to Wikipedia, the budget was 15 million.
Okay. And then the director said that it was less than that.
Okay. Great. That's a great budget for that movie. Like I said, I've seen it, and they left it all on the screen, if that's the case. Right. I mean, it helps to not have Hollywood actors to pay and to overload your 2-hour movie with like an hour and 45 minutes of melodrama, which is what that movie did. But the effect scenes they had, the Godzilla moments they had were great. And like the complaint with the American versions of these movies is that you don't care about any of the characters, and they like try to humanize Godzilla in some weird way, or like give him some personality or character instead of just making him this force that like trounces your city. And they don't do that in this movie. They let him just be the force that trounces your city. And then you get to spend a lot of time with actors you've never seen on screen before.
Fun. Okay, fun. Number 4, lastly, I can't believe I haven't heard James mention anything about the upcoming sequel to It Follows. They announced it about a month ago. I'm sure James is excited, or maybe he's skeptical. What say you, James?
For the record, I didn't even know that happened until I read this email. So that's why it wasn't mentioned, is somehow that slipped through my radar. And I'm totally excited about it because the crew is back, baby. I mean, it's like everybody that originally made the first one. And so David Robert Mitchum, I think, is the director. And I've seen all of the movies he's made now. Under the Silver Lake was weird, but fun to watch once. I'll watch it again maybe once more in my lifetime. His first movie, American Sleepover, you can see like the indie roots that bled into It Follows from there, but it's like not a movie I'm going to revisit, I would say. And so It Follows is definitely my zone with Robert David Mitchum. And so if he can duplicate the magic into a part 2, great. I think he's unproven. Like maybe he just struck gold in that moment and maybe he can't do it again. He's also never done a sequel before. So there's that. But I have high hopes because, I mean, even the executive that greenlit the first one has moved companies and, brought the film under his wing to a totally different company. So clearly there's some love for this and making it happen. And I'll hold on to that hope that they're not going to ruin it.
Cool.
You liked It Follows, right? As a guy who doesn't particularly love horror movies.
Yeah, It Follows was great.
Are you excited about a sequel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very excited.
Great. High hopes or better chance they're going to screw it up?
High hopes.
Okay. Awesome.
High hopes. Better than the original.
I don't know if that's possible, but we'll see. Hopefully they'll just keep the budget the same and just give us like more. You know what I mean? More of the thing chasing down the lineage that the virus or whatever is happening has passed amongst the youth type of thing. Or like fast forward it and now Micah Monroe's character is in her mid 30s and she's been running for 10 years. You know what I mean? And she's just like constantly trying to stay up in front of this thing and nobody will believe her type of thing. I don't know.
Man,
Something
I think
like that.
with a little bit of knowledge, you could just be fine. You just like calculate its speed, right? Its walking speed, and then cross an ocean and know like, okay, in 7 years it'll be here because I know how fast it goes and I know the distance. And then in 6 years, you move halfway across the world again and you got 7 more years.
Sure.
Easy. No fear.
Yeah. That's the type of thing that I think would be interesting is if they start the movie with a character who's been doing that. You know what I mean? And come up with some scenario where it stopped working. Like they got caught by the police and put into a prison. You know what I mean? And now they can't stay ahead of it. And they're just counting down the days.
Desperate to leave the prison. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Something like that happens.
I like that. Yes.
I could see it.
Or like they have a birthday party to go to, but it's also following them. So they got to like do both.
They have to decide one or the other.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that too. I think.
All right. Love the show. Thanks for always delivering great film discussion content. According to my Spotify Wrapped, you guys are my #1 podcast. I spent 3,500 minutes listening to the three of you bicker and rant this year. Can't think of anything I'd rather spend my time doing. Thanks again. Love always. 1989, Justin.
Nice.
A great movie, by the way. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks for listening. I'm very excited to hear that we're your #1 Spotify Wrapped podcast. That's awesome.
Yeah, we had a couple listeners reach out and say they were, which is awesome. That's super cool. That. Yeah. 3,500 minutes is nearly 2.5 days.
Okay. That's
so
nothing.
He's had us in his ear holes for 2.5 days of
that's
the last
less
year.
than 1% of his year.
It's still a lot.
Less than 1%. I mean, come on. You spend 30% sleeping.
Sure. Right. But this is in his waking time. So it's actually more than 1% of his waking time. Because if you're going to eliminate 30% for sleeping, then it's 2.4 days of his waking time.
That's right.
Either way, we appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for your emails and comments. We appreciate it. Feel free to reach out in the YouTube comments or heyguys@cinereelists.com. And we will discuss your email as well on the podcast. Let's move on, Zach. What are we doing here? We're like, 45 minutes in? And we haven't even talked our movie of the week, which is on Netflix right now. You can stream it as we speak. The movie is titled Leave the World Behind. Here's a clip.
Dad, the TV isn't working.
Whoa, easy, baby. Come on.
Dad, can you fix it?
Yeah. Well, now it's snow. Last night it was a blue screen. Wonder what that means.
What?
Yeah, see, no, it's not working.
I'm aware. Can't you, like, reboot it or something? Or go up on the roof or whatever?
No one's going on the roof.
I am definitely not going up on the roof, okay? But I'm gonna go to the store later, and maybe I can find something that, help. I'll get one of those, some rabbit ears or something.
Why would a rabbit's ear help?
That was Leave the World Behind, a 2023 American apocalyptic psychological thriller written and directed by Sam Esmail, based on the 2020 novel of the same name by Rumaan Alam. The film stars Julia Roberts, Mahershala Ali, Ethan Hawke, Mayala, and Kevin Bacon. Mostly just them. Mostly
Yeah,
just them,
pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
I would say. The official IMDb plot synopsis for Leave the World Behind is a family's getaway to a luxurious rental home takes an ominous turn when a cyber attack knocks out their devices and two strangers appear at their door. Okay, sure.
Yeah, there you go.
Pretty good. Before we jump into the review proper, just want to set up that this review will be in two parts, a spoiler-free part and a spoiler-full part. This right now, we're about to talk about, is the spoiler-free part. Feel free to listen. We're going to try not to spoil anything. If you'd like to hear the spoiler part of this review, if you're listening on a podcast app, just continue listening after the end of the podcast. We'll go right into the spoilers. If you're listening on YouTube, click the link below to jump directly to the spoiler review. That being said, you and I have both seen Leave the World Behind, Zach. What'd you think about it?
Yeah. So okay, I would say I like this film. I enjoyed it. It's definitely a slow burn, and I would also say it's fairly pulpy. Like it's kind of a melodrama, pulpy kind of suspense movie.
Sure.
Like it doesn't play itself on the nose at all, but it's got, it really leans into the like suspenseful music, a very active camera. The camera is just constantly like tilting and twirling and zooming through things. Yeah, twisting and all that kind of stuff, just to like set a vibe and like be ominous and that kind of thing.
Somebody's watched a lot of David Fincher movies.
Totally. Yeah. It's got a lot of impossible camera moves and stuff like that. The dialogue is, I would say, fairly stilted sometimes, like awkward, in a sense of like every third line carries a little bit of mystery to it, to just keep up that drone of like ominous, foretelling, in a way that like, and so the acting has a really heavy burden to get through some of that dialogue, and plot mechanics that it needs. So it's asking a lot of otherwise very talented actors, where they do have to come across as a little cheesy sometimes in order to pull off the dialogue. But if you embrace the film as just kind of a pulpy, melodramatic take on this subject, I think it's fun and I enjoyed it. It got a little preachy towards the end a little bit in a way that I thought was like, I don't know, a little cheap, I guess. But I had fun with this movie. I was down with it.
Preachy, like, I agree that it did get preachy towards the end, but it was like preachy about things that I agreed with. Right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Could still be preachy. I don't know. It's like when everything basically, everything's blurry, right? So we're not sure what's happening. It could be a lot of different things. We're unclear. Once it starts really focusing down into like exactly what is happening, it just feels so mundane and how like basic it is. It's just very basic, It's like, oh, okay. So that's what's happening.
Oh, so fine. you didn't like the explanation for what was happening?
No, I did. I was totally fine with it. But we'll talk about it in spoilers, but it's just
unimaginative.
Like, and we were right all along, Right. You should have listened to us when you had a chance. Did you not watch The West Wing?
Sure. I didn't get that vibe, but I did think it was interesting that like, we'll get into it in spoilers. I was about to say something that wasn't necessarily a spoiler, but maybe
don't worry about it.
Might change somebody's experience.
What do you think of the film, James?
I was hoping that this would be like a really good movie that you possibly would have seen in a movie theater, and instead it kind of felt like a Netflix movie to me.
Yeah, it wasn't
with
a
like
great
A-tier actors in it.
Right.
It really felt like it was undercooked a little bit in like maybe every aspect it could be. It's not to say that it was bad. I've certainly watched worse movies than this, or like more cliched or more, you know, I don't know, goofy's not the word. I don't know what the word would be.
I enjoyed this way more than Bird Box, if that's any help.
Right. Bird Box is a definite comparison. See, I would say I like Bird Box more, but I would put them in the same category of like, if I watched this in a theater, I would not necessarily feel cheated, but just it wouldn't feel like that was necessary for me to see it in a theater. And that's kind of how I felt with this one. I was glad I didn't see this in a theater, and I totally understood why somebody didn't put this in a theater with a big marketing campaign behind it, because I think the audience that you tricked into showing up for it through your marketing would probably leave not super happy with what they were given.
Yeah.
Because you could cut a trailer for this that makes it look far more interesting than it actually turns out to be.
Oh, yeah, because things happen for sure.
Right. It's just none of those things are like mind-blowing at all. And also, I also felt like even if they didn't say it, they seemed to be like predicting what was going to happen next, and then they would show you that thing happen. And I was just like, why do you keep telling us what's about to happen and then showing us that it's happening? And we'll get into spoilers, like, you know, as far as how far they go with that, but it just felt like you were losing some of the suspense. And also they would set up a lot of like, because of what you described, where like the dialogue hangs every third sentence, it means that there isn't like one character that feels pure and the other ones feel devious. Everybody feels devious in this. Like even the kids who are supposed to be just passengers, for some reason, even when they speak, it feels like they might have something to do with this. And it just, because everybody had the same style of talking, same style of dialogue, it felt weird. Which is kind of a shame, because the movie opens up, this is not a spoiler, the movie opens up and you got Julia Roberts on screen, America's sweetheart, you know, and here she is like trying to get her husband to go on this vacation because they just need to get away. And then she's looking outside and she's like just running through all the things that she's seeing and life as it happens and blah, blah, blah. And then she curses at the screen and says, "I hate people."
Yeah.
And then they cut to like a banging credit sequence. And I was like, I might possibly love this movie.
Right. Yeah.
And once those credits were done, it was all downhill, I would say, from there. Maybe not downhill, maybe a slight decline, which is still downhill technically, but like not like we cratered immediately. It was just like, instead of being at a 50-foot elevation, we ended at like a 45. And it would have been nice if it was like a 55 at minimum. You know what I mean? Like it actually went up over time instead of down over time.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so overall, I guess disappointed, but only slightly.
I wasn't disappointed. One, I didn't have any expectations going in, except, you know, the movie sets itself up, right? So you're kind of like following along. And I did find the ending a little bit of a letdown just by how basic it was, and then also a little preachy. We'll talk about it. But I was along for the ride because even if it was extremely heavy-handed, it did manage to keep that ominous tone at 98%, like for the whole movie. Like it never let up, right? It was just constant beating you with this ominous like tone. And it was, I don't know, if you go with it, it's like, yeah, it's like you never know what to expect because it's constantly cueing you to think that things are about to get real bad real quick, you know? Things get bad. I mean, don't get me wrong. But
right.
Yeah. There's also, I think there's a deeper message in this movie that I want to talk about in spoilers that I wonder if it's intentional or not. I'd love to talk about it.
Interesting. I forgot what I was gonna say. Darn, it was brilliant. It was probably
I
the
bet it
best
was
thing
really
I've ever
good.
said on this podcast.
Oh man, my biggest regret is not hearing that thing.
The
this
thing I was
movie.
about to say.
Yeah, it was gonna be
Um,
good.
I also, I didn't, I don't think I've ever seen what was, I've learned this, described as a misanthrope on as a character in a movie. I probably have.
She's a
But right,
misanthrope.
Julia Roberts was
Yeah.
supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess a misanthrope is just somebody who doesn't prefer the company of other humans. Is that right?
Yeah, like a disagreeable person is how I didn't think of it.
Okay.
Let me look that up officially.
Yeah. And it's just hard to empathize with kind of the character that they've presented as pure when she's just mean to everybody with like no
Right.
justification.
Right. Yeah. And possibly
no reason
racist.
to be mean. Yeah, exactly. And so
she had no reason. I thought that there would be more of a reveal about why.
Right. Yeah. There's really no backstory to any of these characters. They're just in the situation and no context for why they're acting the way they're acting.
Right.
I think that's probably by design to keep that tension up so that you don't know who's who or what's what. But
none of the actors really thrive in these roles except Mahershala Ali. He's great.
He's great with what he was given to do, but
he thrived.
I have issues with the way he was acting too, but we'll
really
not him as an actor, just the motivation of his character and like the realism of circumstances of the film. Okay. We'll get into it in spoilers.
Love to hear it.
This is the other thing. We'll talk broadly about the build up to the ending right now. Yeah. There's this like constant pounding towards a specific moment in the movie. And then like in the last 20 minutes, they really ramp it up to this specific thing. And they're intercutting between the different groups while you're supposed to have this Crash-esque moment, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. They do that a few times in the movie. Yeah.
Right. But especially here at the end, they're like, they introduce a character late in the movie, or they bring him back rather, but he hasn't been there. And then they're going to get to the conclusion of this thing. And I was just like, maybe I was checked out by then, but I was just like, they're not going to do this. And did they or didn't they? You'll have to hear us talking spoilers about it. But I was just, I felt like the movie had things to say and tried to do it in a clever way. And instead, for my money, they did it in an annoying way.
Sure. And then there's several things throughout the film. So if you were going to write a film like this, right? You do some research. You'd write down a list of like things that would happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of them would be like animals that normally are scared of humans would like come out of the woodwork a little bit more because like things are unsettled, you know?
Would that happen though? I don't think that would happen.
I think that is a thing that exists where like when things are off kilter, like the weather's weird or something, animals just their behavior is different than normal. I think that's as much as you can say, but so I think like someone wrote that down.
Wild deer that happens?
No. I just think only take the statement for what I'm saying. Is that someone wrote down somewhere that when things are strange, animals' behavior is a little bit different. Okay.
Right.
They're like, let's include that in the movie somehow. And then for some reason, it took up 20 minutes of the movie when it should just be this minor detail in one scene, but it like kept coming up over and over. Like, oh, more animals. Like, okay.
Right.
Made no sense at that level, at that amount.
Not only at that amount, but also it didn't make sense from like a logistical point of view. We'll get into it in spoilers, but just like even like their explanation for where that element goes doesn't make sense to me. But we'll talk about it.
You know the best example of
that's
this,
not
though?
why I didn't enjoy the movie as much as I probably should have, though. probably
Sure.
why I didn't enjoy it is because that first 5 minutes was awesome. I was totally bought in, and then they just fumbled the rest of it. I was just like waiting for them to pick up the ball again and like really knock this out of the park, and they just didn't for me. It never got
Yeah.
better than the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. Let's go to
Unfortunately.
spoilers. We got more to say. What's your letterbox?
For sure. I'm gonna give this a 2.
Okay. All right. I gave it a 3.5.
Okay. A 2 and a 3.5 for Leave the World Behind. Again, if you want to listen to spoilers and you're on an app, just listen at the end of the episode. If you're on YouTube, click the link in the description. All right, Zach, before we go, we've got one more thing to do, and that's play part 1 of our movie trivia challenge. This is how this is going to go. I have this game here. It's called Movie Trivia. It consists of 40 cards. Each card has one question on it. This is the entire game that you can buy on Amazon. I do not recommend you buy this on Amazon because it's far too expensive for what is essentially 40 trivia questions that was probably scraped from the web somewhere. But we have it. And so
Was this $10?
It was like roughly $10, yeah, on Amazon.
So it's a quarter a question. No,
a
that's
lot of
not
money.
right. Is that right?
No,
That's
not a
not
quarter.
right.
Maybe 10 cents a question?
Well,
10
that's
cents a
definitely
question?
not
Does
right.
that sound right?
No.
Quick, do some math. Each of these
It's
questions.
a quarter a question.
A quarter a question. This is
Yeah.
the most expensive game we've ever played on this podcast, Zach. I say that with all confidence. A quarter a question. That's crazy. That doesn't seem right.
Well,
quarter a
4
question.
questions is $1,
Right.
and there's $10 in $10. So 4 times 10 is 40.
You're right. It's a quarter a question. These questions better be good. So each of these cards has a question and has multiple choice answers. And what we're going to do is we're going to run Zach through all 40, and we're going to time him while doing it. So this is a speed challenge and an accuracy challenge. Each of these cards has a question and then 3, I think always 3. Yes, 3 multiple choice answers to choose from. If you answer the question without the multiple choice, you'll get 2 points. If you answer the question with the multiple choice because you need them, then you will get 1 point. So it's better to know the answer outright and say it. If you say the wrong answer, I will just start reading you the multiple choice.
Okay.
If you say pass because you just don't want to even bother guessing and you can't think of a guess, I will start reading you the multiple choice right away.
Okay.
Do you want to keep score?
Yeah.
Okay. That way
I already haven't.
I can focus on reading for you.
Yeah.
I should also say part 2 of this challenge is that we're going to run Kyle through these cards as well and do the exact same thing to him. And since he's not here and he's not listening to this, right, Kyle, then he won't know what the questions are in advance. And it'll be a pure test to see who knows more movie trivia than the other person, right?
Yeah.
This is pure a test as it gets, I
Yeah.
would say.
Which I would contend is Kyle, but we'll go through
I'm
the
gonna
exercise.
I'm even gonna make sure that I ask them in the exact same order. That way,
Okay.
it's exactly the same. All right,
Love it.
Zach, I'm going to set up my timer here on my phone, and
And we have no idea how difficult these are.
I think there's definitely a mix.
Okay.
Are you ready, Zach?
Yes.
I'm gonna go on 1. 3, 2, 1. Finish the quote. You're gonna need a bigger
Boat.
Correct. What does the Little Mermaid call forks in her collection?
Dinglehoppers?
Correct. What is the name of Channing Tatum's character in She's the Man?
Pass. Multiple choice.
Sebastian, Duke, or Justin?
I don't know. I'll say Duke.
Correct. What does Aladdin steal in the beginning of Aladdin?
A loaf of bread?
Correct. Buzz Lightyear and Woody are owned by who?
Andy.
Correct. Who is the actor that plays a young Spock in Star Trek from 2009?
Zachary.
I need a full name.
Quinto.
Correct. Where does Batman live?
He lives in the Wayne Mansion in Gotham.
Correct. What is the highest grossing movie of all time as of 2022?
I don't remember. I'll say Avatar.
Correct. What kind of car does Marty McFly use in Back to the Future?
DeLorean.
Count Dooku is a character from what movie?
Specifically Star
Yes.
Wars. Okay. Star Wars Attack of the Clones.
Correct. What Monty Python and the Holy Grail character says it's just a flesh wound?
Multiple choice.
Sir Lancelot, King Arthur, or the Black Knight?
The Black Knight.
Correct. How many Von Trapp children are there in The Sound of Music?
Oh, that's a great question. I'll say 7.
Correct. What was the first horror film nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture?
Silence of the Lambs.
Incorrect. The Exorcist, The Shining, or The Sixth Sense?
Exorcist.
Correct. True or false? Ratatouille is the name of the rat in Ratatouille.
False.
Correct. It's Remy. So you are correct.
Yeah.
Which of the following was not a Leonardo DiCaprio movie from the early 2000s? I guess this one, The Aviator, Titanic, or Catch Me If You Can. Which one was not a Leonardo DiCaprio movie from the early 2000s?
From the early 2000s. Okay, we'll read them again.
What a weird question. The Aviator, Titanic, or Catch Me If You Can?
Titanic. Is that worth one or
Correct.
2?
Let's give that 2. What musical features the song All That Jazz?
Cabaret.
No. La La Land,
No.
Guys and Dolls, or Chicago?
Guys and Dolls. Chicago.
Correct. What was the first U.S. film to show a toilet flushing?
Train Spotting.
Nope. Psycho, Vertigo, or North by Northwest?
Psycho.
Correct. Who signed the baseball in The Sandlot?
Pass. Multiple choice.
Shoeless Joe Jackson, Lou Gehrig, or Babe Ruth?
Babe Ruth.
Correct. What is the address Nemo is taken to in Finding Nemo?
Like 42 Wallaby Way.
No. But I'll give it to you. P. Sherman, 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney. I think that was close enough. I
Okay.
think we give you 2.
That was the address. I didn't know if you needed the name as well.
Who was the first solo female host of the Oscars?
Halle Berry.
No. Oprah. She was never a host.
Okay.
Oprah Winfrey, Whoopi Goldberg, or Ellen DeGeneres?
Whoopi.
Correct.
Whoopi.
Who said this line? Snakes? Why'd it have to be snakes?
Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones.
Correct. In Aladdin, what kind of pet does Jasmine have?
She has a tiger.
Correct. What song from the animated 1994 movie The Lion King won an Oscar?
Can You Feel the Love Tonight?
Correct. True or false? Mary Poppins was the first Hollywood movie to have a swear word in it.
False.
That is false. You're correct. On what planet did Luke Skywalker grow up?
Tatooine?
Correct. True or false? Chris Pratt played Captain America in The Avengers.
False.
You are correct that is false. Who directed Jaws?
Spielberg.
I need a name. Full name.
Steven Spielberg.
Correct. What does Nicolas Cage steal in National Treasure?
The Declaration of Independence.
Correct. What is hey hey in Moana?
A
What
rooster
is
chicken.
A rooster. Which magazine does Miranda work for in The Devil Wears Prada?
Is it Vogue?
Is it Runaway, Vogue, or Elle?
L.
It was Runaway.
Runaway. Okay.
Which Disney villain turns into a dragon?
That's the first one I got wrong, by the way.
Oh, no.
This is from Sleeping Beauty. So it's Maleficent.
Maleficent, correct. What was Wilson in Castaway?
Volleyball.
Correct. Who voices Belle in the 1991 animated musical Beauty and the Beast?
1991? I don't know.
Was it Jodie Benson, Linda Larkin, or Paige O'Hara?
Linda Larkin?
Nope. Paige O'Hara. How did you not know that? What jazz instrument does Ron Burgundy play?
Saxophone?
Was it the jazz saxophone, the jazz clarinet, or the jazz flute?
I don't know. Jazz flute.
Correct. Finish the movie title. The Hobbit, the blank of Smaug.
Desolation.
Yes, correct. In Die Hard, what is the name of the skyscraper?
Nakatomi Plaza.
Correct. What color is Luke's first lightsaber in Star Wars A New Hope?
I'm sure people know this. I don't. I'll say blue.
Correct. In The Incredibles, what is Mr. Incredible's power?
Strong.
Super strength. I'll give it to you. Who plays Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games movies?
Genlaw.
What family hires the title character in the 1964 classic Mary Poppins?
What family? Oh man, the Bucket family?
Is it the Banks, the Danielsons, or the Jones?
The Banks.
Correct. And you are done. With 7 minutes, 17 seconds, and 16 tenths of a second, I guess.
7:16. Wait, what's the time?
7:17.16.
Okay. I got 2 answers wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I got 67 points.
That's a lot. I think you did well. How hard do you think that was? And do you think Kyle will beat you?
I think it was super easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Kyle will do worse than me. And I think tying me is probably unlikely. So I think he will beat me.
You think he'll beat you on time? If anything.
No, I think he'll beat me on points.
Mm-hmm.
Time is just dependent on you, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, why are we keeping track of the time?
Just for fun, why not?
Just to make you do it faster. I mean, the time could be the tiebreaker if there is one, but it's not likely to be one.
Yeah, I think those were very easy questions.
Okay.
So if he's gonna beat me, it's because he'll know the Black Knight by name rather than needing multiple choice, or he'll know who voiced Belle from Beauty and the Beast, because that's the kind of thing he would know.
You think he would know that?
Well, I knew Jodie Benson sang Little Mermaid, and he would know that as well. So
Okay.
there's a chance that he would also know that about Belle.
Why do you guys know that?
I don't know why I know that, although there's some really great like behind the scenes videos on YouTube where she's like practicing the song. It's pretty fun to watch.
But it's not like Jodie Benson is a household name. It's not like Lady Gaga voiced. You know what I mean? Like you have to go pretty deep to know who sang Little Mermaid.
So she's not a household name like Lady Gaga, but I think a lot of people do know that Jodie Benson sang Little Mermaid.
A lot of people. Let's define a lot of people.
I think millions of people know.
Millions of people.
I do.
know Jodie Benson.
Yeah.
Because I am actively involved in caring about movies, and I have no clue who voiced The Little Mermaid.
You do know. You know exactly who voiced The Little Mermaid.
I do in this very moment, but within 24 hours, I will have forgotten the name Jodie Benson. Guaranteed.
You say that.
I mean, if you keep bringing it up, I'll probably remember it, but that's the only reason. I don't think people think about that. I think even people who like Little Mermaid casually never think about that.
Okay.
So you only end up with hardcores and you two weirdos who know it for some reason.
I mean, would you consider me a hardcore Little Mermaid stan?
That's why I'm confused why you would know that.
So I would say readjust your priors in that point, because I don't think I'm a Little Mermaid head.
I think you just know this weird thing about Little Mermaid that most
But I think
people
Kyle
don't.
knows it as well. I think Kyle knows it as well.
That's weird too.
You may be the only person in the world that doesn't
Who
know.
doesn't know the name Jodie
Yeah.
Benson?
You may be.
Nothing is impossible.
Some things.
Were those questions worth a quarter each? That's the real question here.
No, they weren't. Now, here's the thing. How
Doesn't
could
this
you
piss
best?
you off, Zach? We should totally make a trivia game.
It's pretty amazing. What's the best way you could extract value out of this game?
What
Like,
we're doing.
if you-
What we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Make it a podcast game where we get 2 episodes out of it. We maybe have gotten the most out of this game that anybody has
Those
ever
questions
gotten.
were pretty. Did you feel like they were easy or challenging?
There were some that I definitely didn't know. And also the multiple choice would have been a complete guess. Kind of like the one for Devil Wears Prada was for you.
Right.
You were like,
Right.
you had probably never heard of Runaway, probably because that was made up for the movie. So you just went with the 2 you'd heard of.
My guess is you were reading the card wrong and it's runway, like runway models rather than runaway, like someone who left home.
That's likely. And if I
you
did
were to
do
look
that,
through,
I will check. If I did do that, I will do it to Kyle. Okay?
okay, great.
That way it's
Because
fair.
runway makes way more sense than runaway.
That was towards the end, right?
Somewhere
I gotta know.
early 30. It was
It
like
was absolutely
question 30.
Runway.
Sure, that makes sense.
100% Runway, not Runaway.
Yeah, that's funny.
I wonder if I screwed up any of these other ones. Also, I didn't know how to tell you were right when it was a true/false question.
Yeah. Just the best way to do it is say 2 points,
All right. Yeah.
because that's all I'm looking for.
No, I got to be awkward when Kyle's doing it. I have to do it
Exactly,
exactly the same way.
Yeah.
So I also
After
have to
we
be
do Kyle-
confusing to him.
We should do it with you. And your goal,
After
you've heard
having
the answers twice. Can you beat our time and beat our score? You should be able to do both.
I'm totally into it. I love it. Somehow I have to get you the cards though, because I'm not taking photos of all the cards.
Okay, that's fair.
All right. That was it for this episode 612 of the Cinereelists. We appreciate your listenership. Don't forget, check us out on YouTube, support us on Patreon, leave us an Apple Podcast review, or send us an email. We'd appreciate any of those kinds of things. You could also follow us on social media on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Cinereelists, or you could follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shaban.
We will be back next week with Christmas movies, The Apology on Hulu, The Holdovers on Premium VOD or theaters, and Genie on Peacock. We'll see you guys there. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.